Hi guys, and welcome to another edition of the Kevin Moore Show, which is sponsored by my website, channeling.com. Now on today's show, I'm about to be joined by my guest, Joy Burnett. Now Joy is the author of Entwined, One Woman, One Man, 5 Lifetimes. Now the idea of reincarnation of the human soul has been part of the belief system of most religions for many thousands of years. Now Joy shows how two desperate souls repeatedly come together in a series of 5 stories set within the backdrop of different periods of history. Now in each story she aims to create a world that's convincing and authentic. Joy Burnett, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for asking me to come.
No, it's my pleasure. I mean, when you contacted me, or however we contacted each other, there obviously has been a bit of time since we first spoke, and I believe initially, I think you got in contact with me because you were trying to trace down a guy called William Schaefer. I call him Schaefer.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'll link some of William's past interviews in the description of this video as well. And he's a guy that's obviously does past life regressions in a very different way. So just tell us first of all, so that we sort of size this interview up, that what is Entwined about? If you were to summarize Entwined, and then we'll get back to William.
Right. It's looking at 2 people, 1 man, 1 woman, through 5 lifetimes, and the possibilities that we bring karmic issues into each incarnation. It's looking at relationships in different cultures, different religions, different times, and it explores really the whole reason why we're here, and whether we're on a journey, whether we're brought here to learn specific things, to experience certain. Really, it's completely about the concept of karmic issues coming into your present day life. I've started it in 1209, which is a long time ago, and it finishes in 2003. So it covers all sorts of different cultures, all sorts of different relationships. My interest in reincarnation started when I lost a child many years ago, and found that the religious explanation really didn't cover it for me. And it was some time later that I met a lady at a spiritual fair who asked me if perhaps I thought he'd come to the end of his journey, and I didn't know what she meant. So I started reading about reincarnation, and there are lots and lots of really, really good books available looking at the whole idea of coming back time after time. And I read a lot of books about children's memories, which completely fascinated me. So that's how my interest started. I didn't write in those days. I'd read William Schaefer's book, William Schaefer's book, and by sheer chance, happened to come across him one day and asked for a past life reading.
Wow.
That past life reading started me really thinking about my possible past lives. I didn't remember them, but they certainly resonated. All the stories that he told me resonated somewhere deeply inside of me.
Yeah, that's the difference, isn't it? When he sort of tells you, or when someone, or even your higher self, depending how you're doing the regression, maybe it's through hypnosis, or how William Schaefer does it, it's through his higher self. He channels it. But when it just feels true for you, you know it, don't you? At a much deeper level, you can't explain it to anyone else, can you?
No, can't explain it at all. What it did explain to me was that throughout my life, I've met people that I'm absolutely certain I've known before, and I think that that confirmed it. My past life reading with William confirmed really what I had already thought, that yes, there are people in my life that I have known before, that I have had experiences with before, and that I've written about in the book.
I suppose when you had that loss of that child, I mean, that set you on this path. I mean, obviously, if that had never happened, right, you perhaps would have taken a very different path to the one that you have.
I think I've always been aware that for me, the religious explanations didn't sort of make sense. He was a very, very healthy, beautiful baby, a cot death baby, which even to this day is not explainable. And so at the time, it didn't seem right that a loved, beautiful, healthy child should be taken so quickly. He was only a few months old, and it's. I think once I talked to this lady at the spiritual fair, it made me realise that perhaps there was more. And I think I'd always thought it before. I think I'd always really somehow believed it, but I started looking at it in a more intellectual way and reading about it. And I listened to the Bloxham tapes. I don't know if you remember Professor Bloxham, who did a most amazing hypnosis many, many years ago. Yeah, read lots of books.
So, was this book part of your healing then? Was it to write this book, Entwined?
Oh, definitely, definitely. We always, when I started writing, I was told to write about what you know about, and I think somewhere deep inside me, I knew all of these stories, and I knew them pretty well. Yes, you definitely. You definitely write about what you know. Whether you consciously know it is a different matter, because I think sometimes we unconsciously know things, don't we, and understand things that we can't perhaps always intellectualize. But writing this book for me, one of the things I found about writing it was once I'd started the stories, and these were triggered by William's original discussion that we had. Once I started writing them, it was as if I was living them. Definitely.
Is, isn't that
And
crazy? Yeah.
yes, yes, it was crazy. Certainly, and each one, of course, is based on a different emotion. So there's guilt, revenge, remorse, understanding, and forgiveness, and all of those things are very much part of life, very much part of what we have to learn. And yes, it has helped me an enormous amount writing the book. Certainly, the last one, forgiveness. We all need a lot of that in life.
What were you forgiving, do you think, in your life so far?
Um, it's very difficult to explain, I think, about forgiveness. I think we all of us go through life having relationships with people that are unsatisfactory, over demanding, perhaps sometimes dysfunctional. Um, and I think stepping back to say, okay, where has this come from? Is this about me, or is it about them? And nearly always we find it's about them. It's about their journey. And so I've learned in my life that forgiveness is really, really important, whatever it is, whether it's small hurts, whether it's big things, whether it's things that we deal with in the media. We have to stand back and say that it's it's not about me. Do you understand what I'm saying? That I have to accept that these people are also on their own journeys. We all make mistakes. We've all done things in our lives that we perhaps would like to change, but I think we learn from everything. I think that's what we're here for.
I think you're right. Absolutely, I totally agree with you. And I mean, obviously, this book is one man, one woman, and 5 lifetimes. So, just very quickly as well, how long did the book take to write?
I started it about 15 years ago. Um, it's a long time. I jotted. I jotted the stories. And then when I actually came to write them, as I say, I just felt as if I needed to do it. I think there are right times in your life to do things. It took me until last year to finish it. And luckily, I found a publisher who wanted to publish it for me.
Absolutely. So, okay, so how much research did you do into past lives to prep for this book, do you think?
Every single story in the book, every single journey, I've traveled. I've been to Poland. I've researched. Number three is set in Poland. Um, I've traveled all of the French and the Spanish walks, and also I lived in the Middle East. I lived in Oman for 5 years, so I knew a lot about the slave markets and the slavery. So that the background stuff I researched thoroughly. I don't pretend to be a historian, but I've tried to keep to historical facts while fictionalizing the two people.
Yeah. Yeah, so it must have took a lot of research to get some other. I mean, not every fact is going to be,
No.
100%, but I mean, you must have took a long time to get, those facts put together for each story.
It,
Then.
oh yes, it took a lot of work. A lot of work. Yes, it did. I
Yeah,
loved it though. I loved doing research. I love history, so it wasn't hard work for me, but fascinating.
absolutely. So, and again, what sort of research did you do into past life studies? Did you do much into that?
Um, no, except reading about other people's experiences. I haven't done that much. I think my own spiritual awareness has developed over the years slowly by the people I've met, by the things that I've done. I had a school of natural medicine for 11 years, and we talked a lot about energies and when you're working closely with people, how important your energies were. So, um, yes, I think my own spiritual journey has been my learning, really.
Do you think it's past lives in the sense that it's already happened or it's already happening? Those lives are already happening now.
Oh well, this is a theory, isn't it? About is it consecutive or is it is it all going on at the same time? I really don't know. I'm not an expert, certainly, in the whole concept of whether or not these past lives are still happening or whether they're. I don't know. I don't know. I do know that I do believe it. I do believe that we live many different ways and many different genders as well, many different colours and many different belief systems. Um, but whether it's all happening together, I really don't know.
How have you, applied your daily living or the way that you handle your life with the knowledge that, there's more than this existence, that, we're more than just our body in a sense. We're a soul having a human experience maybe. How do you apply that, or how have you applied that in, just problems that arise in your life throughout the.
That's very difficult to explain because I think everybody's life is a process of learning, and I've learned to be more tolerant in many ways. Uh, I've learned the value of really good friends. I've learned that love is more important than any other single thing. Um, but how do I apply it? I don't fear dying anymore. That's something really quite important. I talk about it. A lot of people my age don't talk about it. I mean, I'm 80 in 3 years' time, so it's not far off. I don't know. I don't know, Kevin. I think it's something that is very difficult to define how our learning affects us. But I do think I've become a better person by being more spiritual and less religious.
Right. So how religious were you back in the day?
I don't think I in this life, but I think I have had many previous lives where I've been involved with religion. I think
Right. You feel that at a deeper level, do you? Yeah.
I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
I feel that I think I've really done it. I
What,
think I've really.
what were some of your past lives, if you want to share them at all, that you feel that you really had?
Well, I can only tell you that I don't have strong memories of past lives. I have strong feelings about past lives, and and when I was talking to William, he made those feelings stronger, and he did talk about me being a nun 11 times, and that really did make me laugh because it's not something that I can imagine. So yes, I think I've been there and done it somewhere in my past lives. I don't find the world's religions very kind
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. Um, and obviously you've chosen guilt, revenge, remorse, understanding, forgiveness in the book. What made you choose those particular emotions?
Because they're about the relationships in each story. Each of the stories really it revolve around those particular things, those particular emotions. Um, And I think the last story, which is forgiveness, it tells an awful lot about the society we live in now and how we have to deal with so many more things than people in different cultures and different lives did with our social media, with the fact that we have in our faces all of the problems of the world. Yes, you understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
In previous lives, people lived very much within the framework of what was going on around them, uh, their religion, their culture, where they lived. Whereas nowadays things are completely different.
Do you think then that the book has also been a surprise to your family as well when you
They
published this
won't read
book?
it. They won't read it. They won't read it. Seriously, my sons both have a copy, and they both have promised to read it, but they have not read it. No, some very good friends of mine have read it and do understand exactly where I'm coming from with it. But my family is it's very interesting. No, they haven't read it, nor has my husband.
That's interesting. Well, yeah, but obviously,
He's
no. Go ahead. Go ahead.
he's on a very different journey to me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we all are, aren't we? You know, we all come together for some reason, and with free will. Maybe sometimes what we think is free will isn't quite free will. It just feels like free will. Do you know what I mean? Like we're kind of forced down a path sometimes that you know the whatever you want to call it, God, the universe, whatever you want to say, has you know has that push to push you in that direction. If such,
Sent us down many that wrong
right,
path.
right. Um, so okay, let's quickly get into the book then.
Right.
I mean, again, I have read parts of the book, and it's really I enjoyed the guilt part. I've got to say, you know, you put that together really well. So let's just go to the first part of the book, and let's just briefly touch upon the story of guilt and where the two souls start off in your journey.
Okay. Um, I didn't know anything about the Cathars really until I had my past life reading, and I started to read and study about them, and found that their beliefs and their concepts were so. I did resonate really well with them. They believed in equality. They believed in peace. They believed in nourishing the earth. They had a very strong moral belief about death and about danger and all those sort of things. And um, a lot's been written about what happened to the Cathars. There's a lot of evidence and a lot of written support, but nobody's really written about the people involved. And so I have written about a soldier who was taken into the crusade by the Pope, by Pope Innocent II, third, I think, um, who had decided that the Cathars had become too powerful. And he wanted to wipe them out. He collected from the jails, from the streets, anybody who would join the crusade. And people don't realize that actually it was the biggest crusade ever sent against any peoples, even bigger than what was sent to the Middle East. And they did practically wipe out the Cathars. And my first story is about two people on opposing sides who, in a way, see each other as the enemy, but in fact they're just human beings in a situation that they can't control. And you know what happens to her in the end, and I won't tell you because it impacts the next story. the karmic issues are then taken into the 1640s, into the time of the Spanish Inquisition, which was an unbelievably awful time in Spain. The king and queen were absolutely in the power of the Pope. They set up the courts of Inquisition, and in the place that I've written about in Cuenca, there was a new court set up where basically the Inquisitor had total power. He had his own army, he had his own priests, and he had absolutely total power. And he could do virtually anything. So instead of just persecuting what they called heretics, he persecuted thieves, adulterers, anything and everybody, and witches particularly. And so my story, the second story, which is called Revenge, is the story of a girl who's born into a very dysfunctional background, who finds somebody who she loves dearly, 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 and she's taken from her by the Inquisition. And so the whole story culminates in her revenge against her feelings, really. So that's the second story. The third story, which is called Remorse, the relationship is totally, totally different. They're mother and son. And in this story, we explore feelings that parents have with their children. Perhaps they don't know where they come from and they don't understand them. And particularly in this story, because there is karmic issues from the previous life. And that was a lovely story to research, because I went to Warsaw and I went to the royal palaces and I looked at the landscapes and read a lot about the royal family, who were very, very powerful at the time. King John III, who was married to a French woman. When you're doing research, you come across all sorts of things. What I discovered when I started reading about this king and queen was that they had 14 children between them. Only 4 of them lived, and the sad thing is that they all had syphilis. So it was something I knew nothing about. So I had to start to research that area of what was going on in the royal family. But apparently they all did in those days. There was no. So that was interesting in terms of research. There's lots of evidence from those two people, the King and Queen of Poland, that still exists, because they wrote copious letters to each other. He was always on the battlefield and she was always pregnant at home. He did come back now and again, obviously. And those letters still exist. And so I read quite a few of them. So that's Remorse. That's the story Remorse. Then Understanding came about because, having lived in the Middle East and knowing about the slave trade in the Middle East, that was far, far bigger and far more extensive than the American slave trade. And mainly it was children who were brought in to the slave markets, because children were much more valuable. They were trained to be girls, concubines or maids. The boys were trained to be soldiers or eunuchs, and they were sent all over the East. Became quite valuable. They were taken even from Southern Ireland. The pirates picked up children and they took them to the slave market in Muscat. So in my story Understanding, it's a love story, really, about two people who come together in the most horrendous circumstances, have to deal with some awful things in their lives, but they learn an enormous amount about love. And that one has a happy ending. Not many of them do. And the last one is about modern society, about our liberal attitude towards sex, towards alcohol and drugs, and yes, learning to understand that possibly we also bring karmic issues into today's lives. But I'm not going to tell you the last story, because the last story it's forgiveness. So it's about forgiveness and about love.
And again, all throughout this, it's the same two souls, basically, just reversing roles, and all sorts of situations are different.
Yes, changing relationships. I did actually want them to change genders, but found that much too difficult to write. And I am aware that there is a lot of cynicism about this subject. So I thought it better to keep them into the gender that I put them in. So they're the same two people living totally different lives at totally different times and learning totally different lessons.
Why do you think that cynicism is still there, do you think, in this subject?
I don't know. I do know that I get looked at very strangely at dinner parties sometimes if I mention reincarnation. I don't think people think about it. I don't think people really, or perhaps it's their religious background that doesn't allow them to. It's only really the Hindus. I have a Hindu friend. I mean, she believes passionately in reincarnation, but most of my friends don't. Most of my friends find it hard to. I don't
Yes.
know.
Well, actually, speaking about the Hindus, I mean, did you ever get a chance to go to that part of the world to look at their take on reincarnation as well?
I went to India many years ago, but I didn't do any research there. I was very fascinated by the Hindus, and I taught yoga for many years. So I did study the books, and yes, and I love it. I absolutely loved it. I love the whole concept that God is absolutely everywhere and everything, and that we. The only thing I didn't like about it was the caste system. The fact that this life you're stuck in wherever you happen to be, wherever you happen to be born. Didn't like.
What's your take on karma then? I mean, and how comes you didn't include that into this as well, or do you include some of that? Is karma in this?
Oh yes, oh yes. There's definitely karma in it. I think there's karma in it, everyday life. What you give out, you get back. What goes around comes around. All those sayings. I do believe that very very sincerely. I think if you do ill along the way, it will come back and hit you in the eye sometime. It might not be in this life, though. Of course, you see, Kevin, might it? Who knows? We don't know. We won't know until we go
No,
on.
no, yeah, absolutely. And again, I suppose you stuck into the most recent time period on this book was 19. Just remind us when that was. That was 1990.
Yes, until 1980 until 2003. It finishes around about 2003, the last story. So it's set in North Yorkshire. It's set in amongst very ordinary people, a very ordinary couple, really, in many ways, who have a very difficult time dealing with each other's karma. Right?
Yeah, yeah. And what was the decision then? I mean, obviously, um, was there a decision not to include any loss of children in the book as well? Because was that too raw for you to sort of
Yeah,
cover?
well, definitely, yeah, yeah, definitely, yeah. I don't think I could write about that. I mean, it's 40 odd years ago, so it's a long time ago, and I can talk about it, and I do talk about it a lot because I do believe that he came back for that very short time, and that probably he's the perfect soul now. Mm, mm. But I, I don't think I wanted to write about it now.
No, no. Uh, I only mention that obviously because this has been part of your recovery as well. Doing this,
Oh,
but this book,
mm, mm,
it's helped you to see a bigger picture of what why we go through some of the things that we do, and
mm.
I'm sure that this book will obviously help other people to see that message as well of hope.
So I hope so. That's what it's for. It's about understanding relationships and understanding that they're not always perfect. That we do have to look at ourselves really to see what our input in the relationships are.
Yeah, I mean, when you look back at your relationships or relationship, um, can you see that in yours in the sense of past life ties with the person that you're with and
Yes.
have been with?
Oh yes.
Yeah,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah,
Yes. I've been married twice. I've been
right.
married twice, and I think in each case I have known them both before, without any doubt. Without any doubt at all.
Yeah, and when you obviously applying what you've kind of feel that you've learned from the past life, um, um, I want to say information, but it's much more than that. But
It's much more than that,
yeah, but of
yes.
course, but then
Yeah.
you can see. Are you able to step back on some of the patterns that you have had in relationships and see, that's why that happened maybe, or that's why they triggered us to do this, or
I do think we come with something already that we're destined to learn, that we're destined to go through, and I think some people do learn it and some people don't. And I think that the question is, have I learned the lesson? Have I actually been able to step away from this and realize that this is about love, it's about forgiveness, it's about all of these things that we've talked about. Yes, I think we all come with some definite um, lessons to learn. I don't know how I can explain it really. I I can't. I don't know. In the Akashic records, everything is there, and whether or not it's true that we decide before we come, as some people believe, that we choose our parenting, we choose the place and the culture to where we're born. Um, it is a belief that we make those choices early on. And if we do make those choices before we are born, then yes, we definitely have lessons to learn, don't we? We come back specifically for that reason.
Yeah, yeah. Does it make it any easier to pay the bills or anything else? Well, no.
No.
But what does it do for me? Or I suppose I could ask myself that to know that I've been here before. That less of a blame game. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Sometimes.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. You don't point the finger and say this is your fault. We have a rule in my house, always have had a rule, that we don't use the words fault, blame, and guilt. Fault, blame, and guilt are very, very destructive words. And so even when I had my school, because I had a school of natural medicine, the first thing that all my students learned was that we don't use those words. We don't blame anybody for not doing their homework. We don't point the finger. We don't even say it's my fault. That's not a good thing to say. We talk about responsibility. Um, it's powerful. Yes, it's quite difficult sometimes, but we do. We try and abide by those things. I mean, there are other words we shouldn't use, but they're hard. Like
There's a
you should.
there's a lot of other words we shouldn't use, but we do. So yeah, no one's perfect, and I think that's what you show in the book as well. That there's um,
Yes.
everything everything happens for a reason, for a bigger reason sometimes that you just can't always see at the time, and that it's happening. What would you say is the most important message of this book?
Um, love. It's very simple, really. It's about love. It's about loving yourself. It's about understanding yourself, about understanding, as you just said, that we come here perhaps without realizing that we have a pathway, but we do, and we don't. We have to take that responsibility in our lives.
Would you want to come back?
Do you know? I don't know. Would you want to come back?
Ay, ay, ay. Yeah.
It's a difficult one, isn't it? Um, Perhaps we come back somewhere else. Perhaps there is another planet that we can reincarnate to. Perhaps there's other experiences that we don't know or understand. There are a lot of people who do believe that we don't just stay on Earth. That there are other places to incarnate.
Yeah. Where do you think you're going to go with this? Do you think this is it for this type of subject, or do you think there is more?
Well, I don't know. This feels like because it's taken so long, and because it's taken such a lot of research and such a lot of feeling has gone into it. I think I don't know whether there's anywhere else to go. I don't think I will be writing this book again. This has got me and my whole self in it, if you know what I mean. All of all of those people, I think, somewhere lived within me. Uh, Perhaps not exactly as I've written them. Perhaps they are very. Um, but I do think the information came from somewhere that wasn't necessarily just my imagination.
No, that's interesting, is it? So when you was writing this, you felt
Yeah.
like, did you feel like you were channeling it in a sense?
Well, I'd like to think I was channeling it, but I wasn't aware of channeling it. While I was writing, it did come very easily. Most of certainly the feelings that were involved in each story came very easily. Um, yeah, I do think possibly it was channeled a little bit. I like to think it was.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and where can people contact you or pick up the book? You don't have a website, I don't believe, do you?
No, I don't. Here's the book. Here is the book. It's available in all good bookshops. It's available on Amazon. You should be able to order it anywhere in the world. I'm not quite sure whether that's been tried yet, but I do know that you can download it from Amazon very easily.
Yeah,
Um,
and you could probably order it from all good bookstores in America as
yes,
well. Yeah, yeah,
probably. Yes, I'm sure you could.
yeah.
The publisher says that you can. So
And it's a
there we
big
go.
book as well, as you were just showing it there. It's a thick book. It's a good read, and
It is.
I've got to say, Joy, you have really done your homework on this book, and you've you've really put a lot of love into that. And I can see why it's taken so long to get your music into that book. You've done a great job.
It feels like, yes, it feels like that it's been a challenge, but it feels like it's almost like my baby. You know,
Well,
I've done it.
I was gonna say, what did it did? Yeah, it's like a birthing, isn't it? But it must have felt such a. How did it feel when you got the book finally done? When it was when the
Oh,
script was finished?
I was absolutely not only overwhelmed with the fact that I'd finished it, but I was very pleased with the fact that I finished it because it's not my profession, writing, really. It's something that I've done since I've retired. I love it. I love doing the writing, but I've loved doing this book. I have written other books which are self-published, but nothing to this scale, nothing with this much feeling and this much. Um, I hope messages in it. I hope
Yeah.
there are messages.
Well,
Yes.
obviously I've had a lot of past life regression people on, and I think one of the bigger ones was, and I don't know if you've heard this name, was Dolores Cannon. That's another one that's obviously not with us anymore. Dolores passed a couple of years ago or more. But there are a lot of people in, that have done, that do and have done the past life regressions, or even the life between life stuff. Have you come in
Yes.
contact with that at all?
I've read about it. I've read about it. I'm not sure. I'm going to wait and see.
Would you ever be interested in having your own regression? For you to be
Oh,
taken down.
hypnotic regression.
Yes.
I have tried, and they can't hypnotize me. I think I'm too.
Really?
Well, I have actually tried. Yes, I was having problems with one of the stories, and I thought perhaps it might be a good idea to just go and see if I really was there. And I did try with a very well-known lady, and she said she tried 4 times, and she couldn't get me to go anywhere. Now, whether that's me or whether there wasn't any possibility that I could go to that time, I don't know. But she couldn't regress me.
What did she say was the reason?
She said I was very strong-willed.
Is that a nice way of saying it? Yeah. That's the yeah. Well,
I
yeah.
don't. She didn't really give me an explanation. Just said, oh, "Well, you're just one of those people that doesn't want to go or can't go."
Well, maybe it wasn't for you to go down that way because
That's the thing.
yeah, it
But
wasn't.
I think having listened to tapes of people who have been regressed
Yes.
under hypnosis, I think I would like to. I wouldn't be afraid of it.
Hmm.
I think I would like to do it.
Well, maybe you
Perhaps.
had to write the book first. I don't know.
And well, perhaps I'd be regressed and then write another book.
Hey, who knows? There's
Okay.
this, yeah. I suppose none of us know where life's taken us sometimes, and
Okay.
that's the kind of fun side of it. Even though some
Yeah.
of us love to be in control and know what we're doing, I think there's some good things about just being, going with the energy sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay, is there any sort of final message you might like to give?
Um, Well, I hope a lot of people read it. I hope a lot of people understand the message in the book. That's really, for me, the most important thing, that they understand what I'm saying in the book, that we do need to learn from the mistakes we make, from the journey we're on, that life is not perfect, that we have to stand back sometimes, take responsibility for where we are in the relationships or um, in the lifetime that we're living.
Wonderful. Well, Joy, thank you for coming on just to talk about your book, and I hope it inspires others to write their own books in this subject or something close to it, because I think it just helps to grow us in ways that we need sometimes. So I just want to say, Joy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Kevin, very much for asking me to come. It's been a pleasure.